I'm in Buenos Aires, Argentina. In this impressive city, I want to see the places most tourists overlook. So my goal is to ride every suburban train system that forms part of BA's massive railway network. So today, we're at Argentina's largest station to ride the country's busiest suburban train line. But at the end of the line, we step into another world. Join us as we chug along on an 80-year-old beast. The windows are down, there's as many crew as there are passengers, and the toilets? I don't know if I've seen anything like this before. This is the University train of La Plata. Buenos Aires has a massive suburban train system. It's the second longest in the Americas, behind only New York City. The network can be divided into several different lines, or I like to call them systems, since many have multiple branches. Each system leaves from its own terminal in BA, and they all have unique characteristics as well. Some are electric, some are diesel. Some use wide gauge tracks, others run on narrow gauge, and they're operated by 3 different companies. I've already looked at 2 of the systems in a previous video. Today, I want to focus on the busiest and most extensive, the General Roca Line. With 198 kilometers of tracks and over 900 train services a day, the Roca Line is an impressive operation that brings people from communities south of Buenos Aires into the city. Every day, more than 500,000 people use the train services of the Roca Line. And today, so will we.
Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new Trains Are Awesome video. I'm Tom, I'm in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It's time for part 2 of our series trying to ride all the suburban lines in BA. I'm at Constitución Station. It's a little rainy and windy today, but we're going to ride the Roca Line, one of the most expansive lines in the system. We're going to take it to La Plata, and there we're going to ride one of the coolest trains you can find in Argentina. Let's go.
Here at Constitución, the transfer between the railways and city transit is very easy. The Subte Line C stops at a station right underneath, while out in front of the main entrance, you will find bus bays for the multitudes of colectivos, or buses, that fan out into all different directions. I found the bus system in Buenos Aires very impressive, but very different from other bus systems I've been on, so there will be a video about those in the future. But for now, let's head into the train station. Constitución Station has many shops, bakeries, and restaurants where you can grab the things that you may need for your journey. Many of them are located around the impressive main hall. This station has 16 platforms, which serve 156 million passengers every year. That makes it the largest station in Argentina. There has been a railway station here since 1865, and the current building dates back to 1925. It features one of the largest train sheds in the world. I'm making this trip with my good friend Nonstop Eurotrip. While he was getting a coffee, I stayed in the main hall observing the beautiful architecture and the crowds hurrying about. Large modern screens show all the upcoming departures. As you can see, the station is quite busy. In the next half hour alone, there will be 8 departures. Constitución is served by the Roca Suburban Line, as well as long-distance trains to the city of Mar del Plata. There are 3 long-distance departures a day and 4 on Fridays. The Belgrano Sur Suburban Line, which is a narrow-gauge line that we looked at in a previous video, that will also be extended to serve Constitución Station in the future, which would make it even more important. On our way to the platform, a train at a different platform caught my attention. This train was built by Japanese company Toshiba. It has been in service since 1985. Sadly, we never got a chance to ride the old Toshiba trains on the Roca Line. However, we did ride some other old trains built by Toshiba on a different line, so subscribe to Trains Are Awesome if you want to see those in a future video. We couldn't stay and look for too long because the departure time for our train was fast approaching. The 11:28 departure to La Plata departed from track 11. Look at these enormous bumpers, built in Britain. I like the little plant box on top. The Roca Line has many different branches, so it's always very important to check the screens to know what track to go to, so you don't get on the wrong train. Our train is operated by newer stock, the CSR trains, built in China and introduced into service in 2015. If you remember a previous video in which I rode the Sarmiento line, these are the same trains as on that line. The only difference is that while the Sarmiento Line trains got their power from an electrified third rail, this train on the Roca Line draws its electricity from an overhead wire. The interior of these trains is basic but functional. All seats are in a forward or backward facing 2x2 layout. There are some wheelchair spaces near the end of the cars, and a key feature of these trains is that they are completely walk-through. They have open gangways, which means that at the end of the cars there are no doors, but you can just walk through. This is a safety and crowd control feature that is very common in many parts of the world, and one that I hope will be adopted more in the United States. Precisely on time, our train departs Constitución station. Our 53-kilometer journey is scheduled to take 1 hour and 25 minutes, giving us an average speed of about 37 kilometers per hour. I had noticed that on some of the previous suburban train journeys that I had taken here in Buenos Aires, the trains traveled very slow. Speeds on the Roca Line were faster. However, we did stop frequently throughout the suburbs. There are 19 stations on this branch of the Roca Railway. Almost immediately, merchants started walking through the train, selling things like candy, socks, even painter's tape. I bought some snacks from one of them while we listened to this talented individual perform a rap song. Anybody know what he's saying? Very soon, we crossed the border out of the city of Buenos Aires and into the province of Buenos Aires. These are separate entities, kind of like how Washington, D.C. and Maryland are separate entities. La Plata, the city we are traveling to, is the capital city of Buenos Aires province. The Roca Line uses broad gauge. Specifically, the tracks here are 1,676 millimeters wide, or 5 feet and 6 inches. That is the same as they use in India and on BART in San Francisco. The Roca Suburban Line, while expansive, forms only a fraction of the General Roca Railway. This is a collection of broad gauge railways that sprawl across southern Argentina, including Patagonia. This is actually the case for all of the suburban lines in Buenos Aires. They're all named after the larger national-scale railway systems that they form a part of. The Roca Railway was built to make it easier for goods from the farmland in southern Argentina to reach Buenos Aires. Constitución, the square in front of the train station, was an important marketplace in the 19th century. However, for goods to reach the city, they had to travel in coaches along poor-quality roads, or sometimes no roads at all. Then a man named Edward Lum realized that a railway would be a much better way to bring goods from the country into the city. And so he asked the government for permission to build one. He received permission, enthusiastically in fact. The government was all in on railways, understanding their strategic importance. However, funding was hard for Mr. Lum to come by, in Argentina at least. Instead, he found money in the United Kingdom, and with a pocket full of British pounds, he began construction in 1864. The first 114 kilometers of his new Buenos Aires Great Southern Railway were opened just a year later. Throughout the next decades, hundreds of kilometers of extensions and branches were built. The British were instrumental in the development of the railways in Argentina. Not just the Southern Railway, but many different ones. In fact, it was British railway workers who introduced soccer, or football, to Argentina. They would play it with each other when they had time off, and after observing for a while, the local population joined in. So you can thank trains for Lionel Messi. The 19th century became the 20th, and it was a time of wealth and growth for the railroad. Catering to the desires of a growing upper class, they stepped into ventures like private railcar rentals and a luxury hotel and casino. However, things would take a turn for the worse in the 1930s. Of course, the Great Depression played a role in this, but so did government policies that were not so friendly towards the British, the construction of highways, a reduction in international trade, and several years of drought, which drastically reduced the number of goods that the railways transported. Meanwhile, maintenance costs continued to rise. The British were eager to get rid of their railways in Argentina, and after a few years of troublesome negotiations, they were all sold to the Argentinian state in 1948. Now under government control, the Southern Railway was renamed the General Roca Railway, after Julio Roca, a former president of Argentina. Since 1948, the suburban train service has seen 6 different companies operating. So we've made it to La Plata. That was a ride of about an hour and 15 minutes. The chairs are pretty hard, but overall great experience. This train was definitely running faster than some of the other suburban trains I've been on, and there was a decent crowd on board. Now I'm seeing our next train, and I'm so excited. Let me show you. The train we are transferring to is the Tren Universitario, or University train. It will depart from platform 5, which is in a different part of the station. The Plata Station, designed jointly by architects from the US and the UK, opened in 1906. Today, it sees about 3 million passengers a year. Most of them take the train to Buenos Aires, but some are here for the Tren Universitario, an 8.4-kilometer local train route with 10 stations. On weekdays, there are 9 departures a day, and on Saturdays, it's 7 departures. There are no trains on Sundays. And what do the trains look like? Like this. Say hello to Nono. This diesel dinosaur is a living, breathing remnant of the Marshall Plan, dating back to 1948. Built in Sweden, it spent decades running in Portugal before it and several others were shipped to Argentina in 2014. The Tren Universitario opened in 2013, however. So, what did they use before? So the Tren Universitario didn't always have these old trains. In fact, the train behind me is the TechnoTrain. It was supposed to be the future of train travel, built domestically in Argentina. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and after a few years, they swapped it for the dinosaur we're about to ride. I said a few years, but that was actually wrong. It was only 1 year. By 2014, they had already retired the TechnoTrain because of all the technical issues and replaced it with the Nono. By the way, filming the TechnoTrain was the only time I ever got in trouble filming during my time in Argentina. But to be fair, I had accidentally walked into a staff-only area, and the guy was super nice about it. My bad. Anyway, enough about that no-no. Let's talk about this no-no. So half of the train is benches, half is seats. We're sitting on top of the engine right now. Look, the window frames are made of wood. There's art on the walls. This thing is so classic. It's pretty hard to find interior shots of these trains back when they were Portuguese, so I'm not really sure if these paintings were added in Argentina or if they came over like this. The seats have definitely been redone. They were refurbished in the 1980s in Portugal, and some of the benches still have the original leather backs from that refurbishment, but everything else seems to have been reupholstered with this soft grayish-blue fabric. We pick seats in the back half of the train, with the benches instead of the seats, right by the engine. The wooden window sills and the opening windows are 2 other signs that these trains are antiques. I mean, 1948, that's 78 years ago. About 4 minutes late, we depart La Plata Station. It will take 35 minutes to complete this 8.4-kilometer journey. For now, I just want you to listen to these engines roar. The Tren Universitario essentially forms a half-loop around La Plata. The initial segment opened in April 2013 and was 4.6 kilometers long, La Plata to Policlinico. All the intermediate stations serve the University of La Plata. In February of 2014, the line shut down because those TechnoTrains broke down too much. In December, service was finally restored, now using the Nonos. More on these in a little bit. In September 2023, the line was extended to its current terminus, Hospital San Juan de Dios. There are plans to extend it even further, but who knows if and when that will happen. From what I can tell, opinions on the University train are split between transportation advocates and train fans. Some advocates criticize this train mostly because it's slow. It is so slow. These trains had a top speed of 100 kilometers per hour in Portugal, but here the line is only rated for max 40. My friend pulled out his speedometer app, and I don't think we hit any faster than 27 kilometers per hour. La Plata has a population of over 700,000, and yet its urban train system uses 80-year-old trains running only a few times a day at crawling speeds. I understand the criticism. It's totally valid. This thing should be better. That being said, though, the experience of riding this train if you're not a commuter but a train fan is awesome. I used the word antique before, and that's really what this feels like. To me, Argentina kind of already feels like the opposite end of the world, especially once you get farther away from the city. So to be here on an almost 80-year-old train, windows down, engines roaring, and horn blasting, it's that same feeling that you get when you see a gorgeous view out of the window for a first time. It's the same thrill as when a high-speed train passes by your station. It's the kind of rush that makes me happy to be somebody who loves trains. We came all the way here just to ride this, and we weren't the only ones. There were several families on board who had all clearly traveled here specifically to experience the Tren Universitario, snapping pictures and just having a good time. We all took turns peeking into the cab, and the employees seemed happy for people to look, so long as they didn't get in the way. At every intersection, the train would slow down and 2 crew members would jump out the doors, which always remained open. They would then flag the intersections, making sure no cars would try to sneak in front of the train, and once they cleared it, the train could cross. Then they'd hop back on. I made the mistake of checking out the toilet, and now you, my viewers, have to share in my mistake with me.
Well, I couldn't possibly make it any dirtier.
Why are these trains called NONOs? It's an affectionate nickname derived from their manufacturer, NOHAB, a Swedish company. Officially, these are called the 0100 series, and like I said, they came from Portugal. Because of World War II, it became difficult for the Portuguese railways to find coal for their steam trains. After the war, the United States enacted the Marshall Plan, giving money to European countries so that they could rebuild and align themselves with the United States. Portugal used some of this money to buy some diesel trains so they could start running trains again even without coal. They placed an order for these 0100 series trains, which are diesel hydraulic and were built by NOHAB in Sweden, then delivered to Portugal in 1948. In the 2010s, some of them were sent to Argentina. The track gauge in Argentina is slightly wider than that in Portugal, so the wheels had to be adjusted. Initially, they ran on several services throughout the country, including some Roca Line commuter services, but today, as far as I can tell from my sources online, they only run on the Tren Universitario. Here at the end of the line, we can take one more look at the vehicle that brought us here, as it prepares for its return voyage to La Plata Station. Out here, where the weeds are long and the wind is starting to whip up, it's hard to believe that we're in a major city. It feels like we're a world away.
I think that was one of the most fun things I've ever done. It feels like we traveled 100 miles. It was probably more like 2, but... I could probably run and catch up with that, but...
La Plata, the 4th largest city in Argentina, was founded in 1882. It is a planned city, which you can see when you look at the street grid. Basically, the city of Buenos Aires became separate from the province, and so the province needed a new capital city. The main landmark of La Plata, the cathedral, stands across the central square from the city hall. At 112 meters tall, the spires are the 6th tallest of all churches in the Americas. Work was started in 1884 but abandoned in the 1930s. It finally picked up again in the 1990s and construction was finished just a few weeks after I was born.
Here in Central La Plata, it's time to end the video. That was so much fun. The train is old, it's noisy, it's stinky, but such a great experience. And we weren't the only train fans on board. If you're in Buenos Aires and you have time for a day trip, I highly recommend doing this. The Roca Line runs frequently every day of the week, but the University train only runs Monday through Saturday, so plan accordingly. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Trains Are Awesome. We'll see you next time.